Kara Manning with UKNY on WFUV, and I'm here in London with 3 of the 5 members of the last dinner party, Abigail Morris, Emily Roberts, and Georgia Davies, dynamic musicians with a debut album on the horizon and a well-deserved reputation as one of the most thrilling live bands playing in the UK. Ferocious, theatrical, superbly confident, and absolutely riveting to watch. And it took a lot of work and determination to get to this place, didn't it? I think you guys have been working now for, 2 years together?
Nearly 3, I think. Our first show was November 21, and then before that we'd been rehearsing for like a year and a half, I think. Yeah, because it was over COVID.
So, Abigail, you all met at university, some of you at Guildhall. How did that all come about?
So Georgia and Lizzie and I met at King's College.
Oh, in London.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Em and Raw were at Guildhall. And then we met through mutual friends, and then...
So what was it about the vision that you all 5 had initially that coalesced into what was initially called the dinner party?
Well, Abby and I kind of brainstormed the idea and the aesthetic and the band together while we were drunk in a smoking area of a pub in East London.
All great stories start that way.
Which is where we came up with the name and kind of the aesthetic vision, what we wanted the visuals to look like. But I think where we coalesced is a shared love of similar music. Obviously, we all love things like David Bowie, but we also coalesced, it doesn't really make sense, but by bringing each of our own individual influences to it, which ended up being kind of cohesive. Like, it's cohesive in its in our differences from each other, and I feel like that's what people connect with the music, because the inspirations are so disparate, but they work together, and I think that's kind of our personalities as well.
Yeah.
At the point that we were talking today, you were a couple days off from playing Hyde Park for a second time. You'll be opening for Lana Del Rey. Almost a year ago to the date, you opened for the Rolling Stones, which is incredible given that your first gig, I think, was November of 2021?
Yeah, which were very small. I mean, we did start small. But by the time we'd done Hyde Park, we'd played maybe 15 shows, but all in pubs and little tiny venues, to not that many people, and it was the biggest, most ridiculous leap that we could have done. It was very silly.
Yes, and I heard that Mick Jagger snubbed you.
He did. I don't know. I want like an apology in writing. Well, but I mean, I've blown this out of all proportion because I love drama, but it was basically just because like we played, and then there were 2 other artists playing after us, opening for them, which was Courtney Barnett and Sam Fender, and then we went and watched the Stones afterwards, and we were like standing together like, this is so cool, and he came out and he was like, I'd like to thank the opening acts, and we were like, oh my god, he's gonna say our name. Mick Jagger is gonna say the dinner party into the microphone, and it's gonna be like everything. And then like our friend was filming it and like ready for this big moment, and he just said like, thank you to Courtney Barnett and Sam Fender, and then we were just like, oh, you could like hear like our hearts just like,
That little video is so funny.
It's so bad.
It's like holding each other.
I know, just gonna. So yeah, I have a vendetta, and I won't stop until there's like, respond, Meg.
And I can't use that, or I can't.
You can use that. Because like he needs to know.
We've said half as much already.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Every interview, I make a point of bringing it up so that he kind of has to say something. Otherwise,
I will do a public service.
Thank you.
Make sure
that
cool. This gets out there.
Please spread it. I'm coming for him.
Why will the experience of opening for Lana Del Rey at Hyde Park this year be so much different?
I think we're a lot more confident with bigger stages and with bigger audiences. I think we did really well last year. I think like having had no experience on a large stage, but I think we still weren't ready to command a space like that. But I think now we're coming to it after doing Glastonbury, and Isle of Wight and other festivals with bigger stages, and having been playing live for nearly 2 years, I think we're more ready and comfortable to like take up a space like that.
I love the fact that you and Elton John had your Virgin Glastonbury experiences the same year.
Oh yeah! So I can't believe you never played. Yeah.
Next year we'll have the same fireworks.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
You know, I'm also sort of fascinated by the fact that you waited as long as you did before you released your first single, Nothing Matters, as if to become more comfortable with playing live, to be more comfortable in your own skins. And I'm looking at Emily because she's been very quiet, but I'm wondering what the rationale was about waiting as long as you did before releasing that first single.
Well, it's a combination of things. I think if, like, the longer you leave it, I think the better you'll be, really, because you've had more time to think about it and more time to, like, perfect every single one of the instrumental parts, which I think is what we did, especially with Nothing Matters. And, like, in the end, I think the recordings that we did with James Ford, they do have quite a live energy and a live feel to them, and it's kept that vibe that we have when we perform, which I quite like.
Yeah, that was so important to us to have that on the record, because we are a live band, and that was like our priority from the very beginning, was to have the best live show possible, and for all the interest and all the intrigue and excitement to come from sort of word of mouth and people saying, oh, you have to see this band live, they don't have anything out, the only way you can see them is by coming to the show. And I think that's always been the priority.
And the theatricality, when did that begin to brew?
From day one. That's just, yeah, I think that's just how, like, that's just what we wanted.
Before we'd even played.
Yeah, before we even rehearsed, like,
It's
yeah.
just our personalities.
Yeah, I think that's just who we are as musicians and as people.
Watching you live made me think that if the Bronte sisters were alive today, they would have been a rock band, probably.
Yeah, oh my God.
I think that's a fair assessment. Like,
Yeah.
we studied English literature at university.
Yeah,
so I think
big nerds.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my God, I love that. I want that to be the tagline. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, we're channeling it.
Emily, circling back to Nothing Matters, you do this absolutely searing solo in the middle of the song, and I'm wondering where that juicy volcanic inspiration came from.
Thank you. I guess it's just like a culmination of my influences. It was partly improvised as well. Like, I was at home for Christmas and I was recording like some new versions of the solo because I'd been doing the same one for ages live and I wasn't quite feeling it anymore. And then I just sort of improvised these few little moments and I was like, actually, that's kind of better and like, it suits the song more. So I kind of stuck those together. And then I asked my parents, like, oh, which one out of these do you like the most? And they said this one. So it's thanks to my parents, really.
Shout out to Emmy's parents.
And Georgia, James Ford was playing drums so that you held the rhythm section together.
A bit intimidating in the rhythm section. Like,
Intimidated by
yeah, of course, yeah.
Section known to mankind.
It was great. It was an honour to play the rhythm section with him. He's one of like my musical heroes. So just standing there, just like, and having him being like, "Oh, I'm gonna lock in with your bass line." It's like, okay, all right then.
But he's just the nicest man in music. He's the kindest, most generous, most talented person I think we've like ever worked with.
Now, am I correct in saying that you recorded the album last year?
Yeah.
Combination, like 2 weeks in 2022 and then in January of this year.
Yeah.
So sort of
kind of in a month.
Straddling the new year. Yeah.
So will there be an album announcement made shortly?
Not shortly.
No.
It's not for some time.
Still got a bit of campaigning to do.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, we'll announce it this year, but it's not coming out.
I love the fact that you're very patient, or are you very patient?
Yeah.
I think if it were up to us, we'd leak it all.
Yeah, we might. We still might. I think it's funny though, because by the time it comes out, we're gonna have like 2 more albums worth of songs that we want to play live. So I feel like the album will come out, we'll go on tour and not play any of the songs of the record because we're like, this is old. We're gonna play the new stuff.
Now, the song Sinner recently came out. Abigail, that's a song that you and Lizzie share vocals on. Is that Lizzie's song?
Yeah, that was Lizzie wrote that one. Yeah.
So songs that are currently in your set from the album, like Portrait of a Dead Girl or Mirror or Sinner, they're all very different in sound and texture and feeling and vibe. It is very difficult to pin you down, your sound, which I think is very deliberate.
An absence of definition is more attractive to us than to be able to be defined. I think the most transcendent artists don't have a genre necessarily or an epoch that defines them.
Right.
People like Bowie or like Lana Del Rey even, or Florence or Grace Jones, people they kind of define themselves by being undefinable. And I think that's kind of what I would love to do.
Yeah, and I think it's through lack of not knowing who we are. It's knowing very distinctly who we are and not using any other existing words to describe ourselves, because I think, you know, we're going to change so much as we go on in our careers. You know, the five of us have such different music tastes and different personal journeys that we're going to go on, and I think that's going to be reflected in the music. So we don't want anyone to have any expectations of, you know, similar sounds. You know, whatever album comes after this one is going to be different, and the album itself is completely different. Like you said, all the songs are very you know, separate, and I think just the through line is our excitement about them. And, you know, we're never going to do anything that doesn't interest us. We're not going to stick to the same thing if we've run out of ideas. We're always going to be chasing what makes us feel the most excited and interesting and interested in art.
Now, you were just called The Dinner Party until the start of 2023, and then you had to change your name because there was another group called The Dinner Party with Kamasi Washington, Robert Glasper, Terrace Martin playing Coachella and other gigs.
It was kind of devastating at first, because we thought that the Dinner Party project was just going to be kind of a concept supergroup album that they wouldn't necessarily tour and whatever, and then they started to tour and appearing on Coachella and whatever, and our manager got emailed being like, I can't believe the Dinner Party are playing Coachella.
Like, no, it's not us.
Oh god, no, that's not us. So we were like, okay, obviously we've got to change our name. But yeah, as I say, it was quite devastating because the name, I felt like, was quite essential to our origin. We built the whole world around this like hypothetical dinner party.
Is there a relation to the Judy Chicago?
Oh, there isn't any.
No relation.
none.
It's just kind of an accidental thing that kind of correlates.
Yeah.
But, yeah. And then we thought that maybe altering the name a little bit to be The Last Dinner Party would work. So we reached out to their team and they very kindly let us have it.
They were very gracious about it.
Because people have commented that it's actually an improvement and it adds to the world. Makes it kind of biblical, a dystopian, more.
I've come to prefer it.
Me too.
I think it's more striking.
In another example of serendipity, I wanted to talk a little bit about filmmaker Lou Smith and his video of you performing at XOYO over a year ago. That really changed your life. It helped The Last Dinner Party break through in a huge way.
He'd done two before that, actually. The first show he was at was our third show, and it was at a really awful, grungy, like, underground venue called Venue MOT, and that was the first one he filmed, and then he filmed another one, and then XOYO was the third one that he did, actually. And I think was it that one that kind of blew up the most?
Yeah, the XOYO one was the one that kind of went a bit outside of the London scene, but people had started talking about us since that very first video that he did in Venue MOT. I remember that was the one that kind of got sent round, where we had our first meetings with kind of indie record labels in London. We started looking at each other going,
what's going on? Yeah, he was definitely like the spark that kind of shot us, you know, into more
Stratosphere.
yeah. And it was so funny, we were just in Switzerland the other day, and we were swimming in Lake Geneva, and like before we were going to play a show, we were just like, they're like, we can't believe our lives, we need to buy Lou Smith a house, like we're here but we are swimming in a lake in Switzerland about to play a show because of Lou Smith. Like, he was so instrumental in our career. Like, he's amazing, and he's still doing it. Like, that's his, you know, it's not even his job. This is just his passion. His YouTube channel, every single day it's just new bands that no one's heard of, and it's just going to keep going. And I think it's just so wonderful that exists.
I was surprised to read that one of the major reasons you did form what is now The Last Dinner Party was because when you were growing up as teenagers, you felt that there was a void in representation of women speaking specifically to your generation. Why? What were you actively searching for that just wasn't present at the time?
I think an all-girl band that looked like us in the way of, like, not just being a girl group where it's 4 singers and then a band, but being like a band of, you know, women who all play their instruments. I think that wasn't so, because I think when people think about bands and like bands of our kind of genre and our scene, you know, the sort of default is all men and maybe a token woman, you know, singing, doing vocals or playing drums. And the questions we got asked so much when we were starting was, what's it like being an all-female band? Like, how crazy and weird and novel? And it's like, what we want is for that to stop being such a crazy thing. Yeah. And for when people think of a rock band or, you know, an alternative act, it's not unusual for it to just be all-female musicians. That's not the selling point. That's not the weird thing. It's just normal.
Right.
You know,
you would never say an all-male band.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, you would never be like, what's it like being in an all-male band? Like, how did you learn your instruments? Like, you know, like, I think we just would like that to change, and I think it is.
And you also encountered some backlash, which I think was very sexist.
They hate to see a girl boss winning.
Yeah. I think that there's plenty to criticize about the music industry and how it prioritizes certain groups of people, or like how it funds just a few bands and then doesn't fund the rest. I think music generally in this country and every country needs more funding, but I think legitimate criticism of the music industry got obscured by people who didn't believe that we could play or write or perform.
Karen Manning on UKNY on WFUV. I am here with 3 of the 5 members of the last dinner party, and I have to ask each of you about influences. Emily Roberts, guitarist you admire.
St. Vincent would be a good one, because I think like the way she plays is like really unusual and creative, and it's not like very like typically like, I don't know, traditionally rock guitar. It's like it's got something about it that's different, which I really like. That's what the guitar parts in Sinner were kind of inspired by as well, actually. And then Brian May is like a really huge one, which a lot of people I think hear. Yeah, I'd say those are 2 of the main ones. And then I studied jazz at university, so I have like a lot of jazz guitar in me, which doesn't necessarily come out all the time, but like it does sometimes. So that's like a little influence as well.
Georgia, what about bassists?
Peter Hook of New Order and Joy Division, I think, is probably my favourite bassist of all time. To be able to make a bass line so melodic and so iconic. I think the bass really drives Joy Division and New Order songs, and they're all very iconic bass lines. But obviously Kim Gordon as well, an icon, and a woman that I looked up to growing up. You know, we talked about having not many women that you could look up to in rock music, but Kim Gordon's definitely one of them, and Hole, obviously. But yeah, I'd say those 2.
Abigail, vocalists.
Oi.
Or lyricists.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, all right. Lyricist and vocalist, I think Fiona Apple is a huge one. Bowie, obviously. Jabriath is another hero of mine. Carl Sonomi, or Nomi, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Lana Del Rey. Johnny Cash. I think I've said this before, like if I was a man, I'd like to be able to sing like Johnny Cash. Like I wish I had his voice.
You definitely have his gothic tendency.
And finally, what is the one song on the last dinner party's debut album that you were most excited for people to hear in its recorded version?
Beautiful Boy. It's one of the songs I'm most proud of, lyrically and thematically, because it's sometimes when I write, it's songs can be sort of a hodgepodge of kind of different ideas and different feelings, and it's more kind of magic realism and surreal. But Beautiful Boy, I really wanted to capture this very, very specific idea, and I think I did it in that. And it's also got like a huge 5-part harmony that we do at the end where we all sing, and it's just like, so it feels very euphoric and beautiful, and I'm really excited for everyone to hear that.
Well, euphoric and beautiful definitely describes the last dinner party. Abigail Morris, Emily Roberts, and Georgia Davies, thank you so much.
Thank you.